What if you are not stuck because you are lazy, unmotivated, or missing the right strategy? What if you keep living variations of the same reality because you keep using the current version of your life to decide who you are, what is possible, and what comes next? You look at the bank account, you look at the relationship, you look at your body, your business, the audience that has not grown yet, the opportunity that has not arrived yet, the thing you have wanted to change for months or years that still looks stubbornly the same. And without realizing it, you let what is currently visible become the authority. But your current reality is not always telling you the truth of who you are. Often it is showing you the loop that you have been creating from. And if you do not know how to see the loop, you will keep trying to create something new from the same thoughts, the same emotional patterns, the same old stories, the same identity that created the experience you are trying to move beyond. So today we are going to talk about why you keep looping in the same reality, how those loops form, what begins to change when you stop treating the past or your present moment as proof of what is possible right now. Let's dive right in. Welcome to Infinite You Beautiful Souls. I'm Dr. Sheri, spiritual psychologist, multidimensional mindset mentor, and human potential catalyst. And here on Infinite You, I help you understand yourself more deeply, align with who you truly are, and consciously create your life from the inside out. So this topic matters to me so much because I think that many self-aware, intelligent, spiritually open women know that they want more clarity, more abundance, more purpose, more freedom, more confidence, more joy, and more of the life that they can somehow feel I think is available to them. But then they look around and they think, why am I still here? Why does this pattern keep repeating? Why do I understand so much, but I still find myself in the same emotional room, the same decision loop, the same relationship patterns, the same money story, the same business hesitation or decision-making hesitation? So if that has been you, then this conversation is for you. So before we dive in, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, Infinite You, if this message resonates with you and you are ready for a deeper, practical, consciousness expanding conversation. And if you know someone who may benefit from this video, go ahead and share this video with them so they can stop repeating a version of themselves that really is no longer working for them. Let's get right into it. I want to talk first about what this looping actually is. A loop is not a circumstance that repeats. A loop is really a pattern of perception that repeats. It is a thought that you return to again and again, an emotion that becomes familiar, an expectation that you begin to organize around, right? And I talk about cognitive schema in this sense all the time, right? We can get addicted to our biochemistry going on in our brains and neural pathways and particular thought processes that are related to one another. It can also be the meaning that you keep assigning to what happens, a choice that you keep making or avoiding from that same internal state, or latching onto an emotion and using it as a way to identify with rather than as a direction that you can take in order to pivot, right? Using an emotion as a tool versus using it as something that you're identifying with. But anyway, the bigger picture is that over time, what repeats starts to really feel like a truth. And you may begin to think, this is just how money is for me. This is how relationships go for me. This is what happens when I put myself out there. I'm just not lucky. This is how my body is. This is how my work goes. This is just who I am. But repetition, remember, is not the same as truth. A repeated pattern can feel convincing because it feels familiar. It can feel personal because it has happened more than once. It can feel inevitable because your nervous system, your beliefs, your expectations, and your identity have all learned to anticipate it. And energetically, there's a meaning in that in terms of the quantum field. But that does not make it the deepest truth of who you are. It means that a loop is running and repeating. And the first step out of a loop is not forcing your life to change faster. It is really about learning to see what is actually repeating. And one of the biggest reasons that we loop is because we are reacting to our physical reality as though it is the final authority. And I talk about multidimensionality pretty much, I don't know, in most of my videos. So think of your three-dimensional world. And I want to have a caveat to this right now because I understand that people operationalize multidimensionality in much different ways. So, but for the purposes of this video, I'm talking about it in a very specific way. So the 3D world is what we can see, what we can touch, what we can measure, what we can count, what we can confirm. It feels very convincing. It feels very solid, right? Even though there's energy in everything, that even things that are solid are not quite that, but I'm not going to get all tangential on you. Do not worry. But the 3D world matters. And I'm not going to tell you that your physical experience is not irrelevant. Your body matters, your finances matter, your relationships matter, your work matters, the material realities of your life matter. But here is the part that we forget. Your current reality is often the result of what has already been set in motion. Your current reality is often the result of what has already been set in motion energetically, right? It reflects prior decisions, a prior vibration, a prior belief, prior expectations, prior identity, prior emotional and energetic patterns, prior action or inaction, prior ways of seeing yourself and your options. So if you look at what is physically here and now, decide, this must be who I am. This must be what is possible. This must be the outcome I can expect. You are taking yesterday's reflection and using it to create tomorrow. And that is how the loop sustains itself. So you see the low number in your bank account, you decide you're failing. You see the relationship that has not changed and decide love is hard for you. You see the slow business growth and decide maybe your vision was unrealistic. You see the body that hasn't shifted yet and decide that nothing works. And then you think, feel, choose, and act from that conclusion. You create from the reflection instead of from the deeper truth. That is a loop. And another reason I think why we loop, it's a little bit more tender. Simply, I think life just weighs us down, right? We get tired, or we are managing, many, many different things, and we're carrying many different responsibilities, and we're moving through being human, through disappointment, uncertainty, family needs, financial pressure, grief, the everyday density of being human. And when you know better, even when you are self-aware, spiritually aligned, intelligent, and capable, life can get loud enough that you forget how powerful you are. Not because your power has disappeared, not because your focus is narrowed, but when you are overwhelmed, your field of vision gets smaller and you start trying to get through the day. You solve the next problem, you respond to the next demand, you put out the next fire. And if you stay there long enough, survival mode can begin to masquerade as identity. And you stop asking, what do I want? What is possible? What are my dreams? What is my soul calling me toward? What version of me wants to emerge? And then you start asking only, how do I handle this? How do I fix this? How do I get through this? We've all been there. And again, sometimes we do need to handle what is in front of us. But if that becomes the only layer from which you live, you can begin repeating a life that feels like management instead of creation. A life where you are constantly responding but rarely deciding, constantly adjusting but rarely expanding, constantly getting through but not fully becoming, not fully creating. And then I think another reason why we loop is that our beliefs and our stories keep narrating a future that looks a lot like the past. And so a thought repeated becomes familiar. A familiar thought becomes an expectation. An expectation becomes a filter, and that filter will shape what you notice, what you ignore, what you assume, and how you interpret events, what you risk, what you avoid, what you allow yourself to receive. So even when you consciously say, I want more money, I want a healthier relationship, I want to be visible, I want to create my work in the world, I want to feel confident, free, rich, whatever it may be, a deeper pattern may still be saying, money always slips away, people always disappoint me, visibility is dangerous, success feels like pressure, I'm not ready, I need to figure one more thing out first. We do this, and the tricky part is that these stories often do not announce themselves dramatically. They sound reasonable, they sound responsible, they sound like realism. They say, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Maybe after things calm down, once I'm more prepared, once I'm more healed, once I have more proof. But beneath the surface, the same identity is staying in place. The same self-concept is quietly leading. And that same loop continues. And remember, we often feel like there's always something else to fix. This one is especially important for women who have done a lot of inner work. You can become completely, deeply committed to growth and accidentally create an identity around being someone who is almost ready, almost healed enough, almost confident enough, almost clear enough, almost regulated enough, almost aligned enough, right? We all know this even, in terms of weight loss. Like, when I get to this weight, my whole life will be different. Everything will be better, right? There's always another belief to clear, always another barrier to break through, always another trigger to understand, another wound to process, another pattern to unpack, another area of yourself to improve before you give yourself permission to fully move. And inner work matters, healing matters, awareness matters. I would never diminish that, but at some point you have to ask, is my healing helping me become more free, or has self-improvement become the loop? Because if you are always locating the problem inside of yourself, you may unconsciously keep reaffirming, I am not yet the woman who can have what I want. I want to say this too, and I know I'm like kind of making this video a little bit too long, but I want to say this too. Another very obvious reason to me of why you can get stuck and not feeling like you're moving forward is that you are not clear on who you are and what you want. And I know that sounds so simple, but I think it's very true when life gets very busy and we are pulled in a million different directions. We forget that alignment is simply, like I said, in that multidimensional way. 3D reality is our physical reality in our body. 4D is our subconscious mind. This is how I'm operationalizing it. And 5D is our superconscious mind, right? It's the soul part of who we are. So 4D is subconscious, and the beliefs and the stories and the paradigms in which we're currently living, where we're getting our perception from. And then 5D is that beautiful, eternal, expansive soul superconscious level of who we are. And that to me is like fundamental to alignment. Who are you at the soul level? Why are you here? What do you truly believe? What programs do you want to choose for yourself and run on? What beliefs empower you, make you feel spectacular, make you feel infinite, remembering who you are, and then get clear on what it is you want. What do you want to be, do, have, and experience? That's why I think, vision boards actually do come in handy if you're creating it, so you can ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want to feel? What do I want to create? What am I becoming available for? What version of me is reflected in this vision? What lights you up? What expands you? What helps you feel alive, joyful, in a higher vibration? What does your soul keep whispering, even when you keep trying to dismiss it? So a vision definitely can help you hone in on what it is you would like to create in this lifetime, right? So the vision doesn't override aligned action. It doesn't override your inner work. It doesn't make every step easy, but it definitely tells your mind, your body, your energy, your identity, and your choices, this is the direction now. And so try to take time to tune in to your higher self, to your superconscious, because we definitely can loop because we're just too darn busy to listen, to pause, to reflect, to ask what is actually true. And we are so intuitive, and our emotions, remember, it's just energy in motion, right? Use your emotion as a tool to guide you toward what feels good. We are, as a physical body, we are so connected to soul and the non-physical. That's part of how this conscious creation manifestation process works. So I'm kind of like glancing through my notes to make sure I touched on every single point that I want to before this video. And I think I might just talk about this for one little baby second. Remember too that many people loop because they simply have never been given a practical way to shift how they perceive themselves, right? And so that's kind of the bigger picture of like, really tuning in, right? What do you do when your physical reality gets so loud? What do you do when your old story feels more believable than this new version, this new paradigm? What do you do when parts of you want more, but another part of you keeps interpreting life through what has already happened? And this is really where the work becomes much deeper than positive thinking, right? We are multidimensional. And so positive thinking is just a singular mental process, right? We need to be aware enough to say that this is a pattern. This is not a whole truth. This is a familiar identity, but not necessarily my deepest self. This is current evidence, but it is not eternal law. This is feedback, not a final verdict. And then you need a way to return to the version of you who can see beyond the loop. That's where self-awareness comes in really, really handy. The version of you who can say, I see what has been, I see what has been repeated, I see what I have believed, and I am willing to perceive myself differently now, right? So I want to give you like a little bit of practical, like what part of my current reality am I using as proof of who I am and what is possible? Is it money? Is it relationship? Is it your body, business, past, timeline? And the reason why I'm bringing that up is that most of us, we don't even think about the things that come really easy for us, right? Because why would we think about them? They're not a challenge for us. Usually someone could be, great with their money flow, but like feeling not so great, finding the right relationship, right? So kind of tune into what is working for you and what you would like to have flow better. And then ask yourself what thought, emotion, or expectation keeps you repeating and looping in that area. And then ask yourself, what have I learned to believe is true for me here? And then kind of go through that process of like, what feels true for you? And is it really true with a capital T? And then ask yourself, what do I really want? Not vaguely, not someday. What do I want to experience, create, feel, receive, and become? And who would I be if I stopped letting the loop define me? What would I choose? What would I notice? How would I feel? So, beautiful souls, a repeated pattern is not the same as destiny. A life that has looked one way does not get to decide forever who you are. A belief that became familiar is not automatically true. And a current reality that feels loud is not the whole field of possibility. Everything is a possibility in the quantum field. That's how it works at that level. I'm creating a quantum identity playbook. It's not quite done. As soon as it is done, I will put the link below for you to take a look at that, because the field of possibility is infinite. You are infinite. You are allowed to see the loop. You are allowed to name the pattern. You are allowed to want something different. You are allowed to become clear. You are allowed to stop rehearsing an identity that you have already outgrown. And you are allowed to consciously create from a deeper truth and a deeper knowing, not by pretending your current life does not exist, but by refusing to let it become the only lens through which you see yourself. Because you are not here to endlessly repeat what has already been. You are here to awaken, to choose, to become, to create. And sometimes the first shift is simply this. This has been my pattern, but it is not the final truth of who I am. So if this conversation resonated with you, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and be a part of this growing community of people who are ready to understand themselves more deeply, live consciously, and create from who they really are. And if you would like to stay connected beyond YouTube, I will put the link below for my free newsletter. And I will put the link below for my human design session as well. And when I get this really cool playbook all wrapped up and done, I will put the link for that too. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all in the field and in my next video. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.